4, 3, 2, 1. KenCast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to KenCast. It's great to see you today. We have a lot to talk about today. I am going to review the new Dracula movie, The Last Voyage of the Demeter. You may have not known that was a Dracula movie, but it is, and I'll tell you what I thought about it. Also, we have a lot of news to talk about, including, are we about to see the end of traditional broadcast television, or is that in decline right now? We have some analysts and some news that will cover that. And of course, channel news and your comments. It's wonderful to see you. So let's just jump right into it. I want to say hello to Sebastian. It's great to see you. Rabana, thank you for being a channel member. It's great to see you as well. So let's jump into what's happening. And so I want to kind of remind you all that I really appreciate your support. Right now, we are under a strike. We have the WGA strike, the writers' strike, and the SAG-aftra strike. So the writers and the actors are striking right now. In solidarity with them, I won't be doing sort of my normal discussion analysis content. We are going to be shifting during the strike to a slightly different mode. SAG says it's okay to do actual reviews and critiques, so we'll be doing those. I asked all of you actually what you would be interested in doing, and let me bring this up here. This was the poll on YouTube. So I asked you, of all these topics, what would you like to see? And the overwhelming response is 80s and 90s movie reviews. So I am taking that to heart. We are going to be doing those types of movie reviews as well. And next week, we might actually delve into the UFO discussion a little bit. That was the runner-up. And then the other topics definitely we'll get to, and we'll see if you like them or not. But I am looking forward to covering these 80s, 90s movies reviews as nostalgic things that we loved, but looking at it from a review, a critique, to adhere to the SAG requests for content creators. So I'm looking forward to doing that. The first thing I will announce right now is that on Saturday, I will be doing a review, a very deep dive review with one of the experts on the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, Rich Baker. You've seen him on here before. He is a great, very highly credentialed comedian, performer. He's a writer, and he also happens to be an expert on all kinds of movies, but including Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So I'm going to be looking forward to have him on, and we're going to get into a deep discussion and review of this movie, its good points, its bad points, especially when they are in the news lately. Wonderful to see you all. Flip the script. It's great to see you. I think you just uploaded a new video on your channel, Flip the Script. Everyone go check out Flip the Script and subscribe and check out his videos. They're very entertaining. Robana says, so they didn't come to an agreement yet. No. And we will be getting to that before I get into my review of the Last Voyage of the Demeter. We will be getting into some strike news. And I'll let you know what's going on. Jaws, it's great to see you, Jaws. Hey, KenCast with Dracula, Big D. Reinfelder, Ken. That's great. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I let me put it this way. I think I'd much rather work for someone like Terry Silver than Dracula. So yes. I love that comment. That's great. Well, since you're already asking about it, why don't we get into the news?
KenCast News.
Okay, so here we go. Here's some news. Here, I'll put this here. Hopefully you can read it. But yes, this is the news. So lately, there was a meeting called between the studios and the Writers Guild, and it looked like there might be some progress. The studios were about to give a counter proposal to the writers, and they did. And so the writers reviewed that, and this is their response. So the title is WGA Response to Studios Indicates No Quick End to Strike. So I know we were all hopeful that this might be on the road to ending, although let's read this article. It doesn't look like that's happening. Here we go. The Writers Guild of America responded Tuesday to the latest proposal from the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. But any hopes for an easy resolution of the 106-day strike were quickly dispelled. The WGA did bend slightly on a few items, according to sources familiar with the talks, but the union negotiators did not offer the significant concessions that the studio side was looking for in response to its own offer. The Guild has continued to hold to its proposal for a minimum staff size for TV writers, though it offered to lower the minimum by one writer. But the WGA was unimpressed with the AMPTP's offer to give showrunners the authority to hire up to a certain minimum, which would increase based on the production budget. By no means is that the only sticking point. The two sides remain at odds on items across the board, including streaming residuals and a higher minimum tier for TV writer producers. So they had been optimistic that the latest offer would mark a breakthrough in the talks, but it looks like that's not happening. So unfortunately, guys, it looks like this strike is going to keep on going. Hopefully, this is a good sign. This is the first time they had talked for the entire strike. They hadn't even talked yet. So at least they're talking now. So that's good. But it does look like they're kind of far apart. Hopefully, negotiating minds will come to an agreement soon. We want to be able to enjoy these things. Of course, I know you guys are interested in series like Cobra Kai and Stranger Things and, you know, all these great series. Everything is basically shut down right now in Hollywood. So the sooner we could get these strikes resolved, the sooner everyone can get back to work and we can get back to enjoying all that great entertainment that we love. So this news story about the strike kind of goes into this other story. And I was thinking of actually leading with this, but I think the context of the strike is very important. So this is according to Variety. Linear TV viewing drops below 50% of US television usage for the first time. Streaming hits record high. And this is according to Nielsen. And then Suits on Netflix and Peacock was the most streamed title for July 2023. Okay, there's Meghan Markle in Suits. So I don't know if any of you guys watch Suits or not, but let's dive into this and we can talk about this a little bit because this kind of, I think, ties into the strike, especially the requirements that they're trying to put out for streamers regarding residuals. Broadcast and cable TV dropped to a new low in July 2023 in terms of total share among American viewers, dropping below 50% of total TV usage in the United States for the first time, according to Nielsen. Wow. Meanwhile, streaming services like YouTube, which you're watching right now, maybe, and Netflix accounted for a record 38.7% of total US TV usage, the category's largest share reported in Nielsen's The Gauge monthly report to date. Overall, TV usage increased 0.2% during the month, and usage among audiences under 18 was up 4%. So it looks like July, the cable share fell to 30%. And actually, I'm going to go down here because there's actually a cool graphic and we can take a look at this. So let me know what you think of this. This is interesting. So streaming of all the different ways people can use their TVs, and I know a lot of you guys are not even watching TV on your TVs. You're watching it on your mobile devices. 38%, almost 39% is streaming. Cable and broadcast add up to just under 50%. So this was the first time it's in the minority, or at least below 50%. It looks like streaming and other are up quite a bit. And over here on the right, you can see how everything makes up that 38.7%, including YouTube is 9.2%, followed by Netflix. I think this is interesting, number one, because YouTube obviously is the top streamer, I guess, which makes sense. I know I watch YouTube quite a bit and, you know, obviously creating content for YouTube. I think you guys might watch YouTube quite a bit. But right beneath that is Netflix. So you can see, according to Nielsen, just how much a bigger slice of the streaming pie Netflix has than all the other streaming services. You know, Disney Plus, which has invested quite a bit in growing its market share, is still just at 2%. So Netflix is over 4 times as big in terms of market share as Disney Plus. Prime Video is only 3.4%. So it's like it's such a big drop from YouTube and Netflix down to the other services. Um, Paramount Plus is 1%. That's interesting. And then Pluto TV is 0.9%. I enjoy watching Pluto TV. So I guess my question for you is, what is going on? Is this a point of no return? Is this an inflection point in terms of how we use TV? Um, my idea is that everything will eventually go back towards the cable model. We saw with and I'll bring it back here, the WGA strikes, and especially with the actors' strikes, there's a big question about residuals, and they want to get paid for their work. If it's on streaming platforms, they want residuals for that. And traditionally, residuals came from sales or new licenses of these types of things to new distributors. But also, if it's airing on television, uh, the ads which support the airings of their show would generate new revenue. So they could basically get residuals from that new revenue. It made sense. So I'm actually wondering if we are going to see streamers get revenue from ads. I know that you've seen with Disney Plus, and I think even Netflix, they've introduced, and definitely Paramount Plus, these ad-supported tiers where you have a lower cost of entry. You just have to watch ads, and then you can get rid of those ads by paying more per month. But I'm wondering if ads will become more prevalent, if these streamers are going to keep raising their prices, because Disney Plus has raised their price again. Netflix keeps raising their price as well. If eventually it'll just make more sense and be more economical for everyone to go back to a tier that includes ads, then we might be back to essentially cable on demand, which is really interesting. And I'm wondering if something like that, because there would be new revenue coming in for these shows through the streamers for actors and writers, that they can get paid their residuals that way. So I'm wondering if that's where we're headed. But I'm, of course, interested to hear your thoughts on all of this. Let's see. Maite, hola, Jaws. Yo de Valencia, el inglés no lo entiendo. Okay. Well, Maite, just to let you know, I don't live too far away from Valencia, California, which is really interesting. But I have been to Valencia in Spain, if that's where you are. Robana, well, you pay just as much for all the streaming as you would for cable, plus there's never anything on TV anymore. Right. Isn't that interesting? And one of the things that's interesting for me too is, you know, I guess a luxury. Sometimes people enjoy putting on the television, and like on Pluto TV, you put it on a channel and someone kind of decides what you should watch. Whereas Netflix, I spend a lot of time, or these streamers, sometimes hunting through trying to find something I'm interested in watching. Whereas sometimes I enjoy putting on Pluto TV because there's always just something there. I don't have to think about it. I can just put on something, a channel that I like, and something's there. I don't have to be too picky. It just kind of does it. And so, yeah, I agree. It's if you want to get all the streaming services, that's going to cost you a lot of money, as much as it costs for cable. Now, cable, you know, I think a lot of people still watch cable, maybe for sports, maybe for different things. Definitely, I've noticed the older generations, they're still into cable, just because they're used to watching TV that way. But I think as time goes on, as the younger generations get older, they're going to want that on-demand content. And I wonder if we're going to see streaming basically turn into on-demand cable with, maybe you can pay a huge amount of money to get those ads removed, but where most of the streaming services are actually going to be ad supported. So you can subscribe to them for a reasonable amount of money. And then we're kind of back to square one. We're back to the cable model again. I don't know. I just have a feeling we'll probably go that way. It's been too good to be true. I think it's been too good to be true lately. let's see. Just get an ad blocker and watch these streaming services on your laptop. Yeah, that I mean, hey, I won't you know, specifically condone any actions, but Robana brings up an idea, and if you want to try it, then go for it. 100%. Jaws, Ken Cole speaks Spanish better than my English teacher. Well, it's a low bar, so in that case, so we'll see. I'm very rusty. I'm very rusty. It's been a long time, but it's great. I always love. Oh, look at this! And Jaws spoke Spanish back. Thank you, Jaws. That's wonderful. So yeah, so I'm wondering if that's what's kind of going on in the industry now, and we'll see things. I don't know. We'll have to see how things wind up. But to me, I'm looking at this, and we can see that um, Netflix is 8.5%, a major streaming service, which means I think that if you're a fan of a show like Cobra Kai, which you probably are, if you're watching this channel, then that's a big show. A hit show on Netflix is going to be a hit show across the board. Like an influencer or a content creator on YouTube who has tons of subscribers, that's a huge audience of streaming, as we can see. And then Netflix is right behind that. So I think that's good to keep in mind when we look at the prospects of future TV shows, maybe set in similar universes. If it's a huge hit on Netflix, it probably will happen. So very that's very exciting to me. So anyway, I wanted to kind of let you guys think about that and let me know your thoughts. Robana says save silver. Yes, Robana, indeed. We want to save silver. So in our quest to maybe pivot content, we are going to be going more towards reviews and talking about things that don't have to do with a discussion analysis of TV shows, movies for now. We might go into different topics. We want to have fun discussions. But today, what I thought is I could share with you my experience going to see a movie called The Last Voyage of the Demeter. This is a new movie. This came out last Friday. It had a horrible opening weekend. It was not popular at all. We can see, and actually, if I bring this up, for those of you who are not in the United States, we can see that actually the release has been delayed indefinitely in England and other international territories as well. And it's not just because it's maybe not doing so well in the United States. It's because the distribution companies overseas, some of them are having financial troubles and they had to fold and they had to sell off their assets, that type of thing. So unfortunately, this might be a delayed movie for people across the world. But I wanted to tell you about my experience going to see it because I don't know about you. I saw ads for this. I saw previews for this, and I didn't pay too much attention. And it basically looked like maybe an 1800s generic vampire movie, like a ship that was, I don't know, dealing with a vampire that was stalking them. And, it looked kind of cool, but it maybe kind of seemed generic. But for me, the marketing really didn't drive home the point that this is Dracula. The vampire in this movie is Dracula. And here, let me bring up here. I'll bring up the poster. So yeah, so I had no clue. And then I read about it and I started reading like stories about it. And they started talking about the fact that the vampire in this is Count Dracula, that this is taken from chapter 7 in Bram Stoker's Dracula, which I don't remember at this point. It's been so long, but there were the captain's logs of the Demeter that were in that novel, and that this movie was based on those captain's logs, talking about the unfortunate fate of the crew that, Dracula used to get to England, to London. That was his ultimate goal, but he ended up using the crew as food for himself. So I thought that was a really interesting topic for a movie. And so I decided to go see it. And it was really fascinating. I think that this movie, I mentioned the marketing. I don't think the marketing was very good. And because it didn't, I think, give you an appropriate understanding of the fact that this is a Dracula movie. But I also think it got lost this summer in all the other releases right now. Barbenheimer is still going strong. Um, and it's kind of a strange time, I think, to release a movie, beginning of August. Maybe this should have been more towards September. I know that we have a lot of other horror movies coming out this fall. I think there's a new Exorcist movie coming out. So maybe they didn't quite know where to slot this, and it just got lost. So what I wanted to do was to give you a review of the movie. And if anyone here watching this has seen the movie, let me know what you thought, as well. So the first thing I'll say is the setup was fantastic. I love the story. I love the setup of this movie. I love the fact that it was kind of really sort of like this classic historical seafaring vibe, which we don't see from a lot of movies nowadays. And it did have that old school vibe to it. Like it wasn't there wasn't too much detectable CGI. There were lots of effects, but it seemed genuine and cinematic, and it really, I think, brought you into that world, and it was a fun place to go. I think, especially if you're into historical epics and that type of thing. If you're into seafaring adventures as well, and there were a lot of ominous overtones at the beginning because you saw them loading the crates into the ship, and everyone was very upset, or the locals were very upset to see the dragon Dracula insignia on one of the crates. And that made everyone nervous. They didn't want to have anything to do with the boat. And then the crew members, they just wanted to get the job done. So they didn't want to hear anything of it. And, you know, that sets the stage for sailing out into the ocean. And so they sail into the ocean. The captain who writes the logs is there. He's played by Liam Cunningham, who we know from Game of Thrones. He's been in a few other things, and he does a really good job in the movie. The character is a bit, I don't know, I think smaller and not as heroic as I might have expected, given the circumstances. But so they set sail, and there's a cabin boy, and eventually they find a stowaway, and then the problems start. And there are attacks first on the animals, and then, I don't think I'm giving anything away, on the humans as well. So that was a very interesting setup of the movie for me. So for those of you who are movie fans, you, you might technical difficulty there. Um, for those of you who are movie fans, you might notice the similarity to Alien, the first Alien, and that's exactly what it is. It's like if you picture Alien on a ship, where the alien is Count Dracula, a vampire, going after the crew. That's essentially what we have here, and it's interesting. Um, I will say that I think this movie is, first of all, the attack scenes are great. I think if you're a horror fan, if you're into chills and freaky imagery, it has that. And I think that there's enough of that in the movie where I think this would be very entertaining for a lot of people. And it probably should have done better than it has this past weekend. I feel like it got buried. No one really was aware of it. I think there's definitely an audience for this movie, and it looks like that's going to have to be found on streaming. Um, but my own opinion on it is that the actors do an amazing job with what they have, but the characters themselves are very thin. And so a lot of the scenes that take place during the day, or they take place in between the attacks, the character development is really kind of cliched and minimal. I felt that the tension between attacks, which really has to be sustained. If you look at a movie like Alien, it works so well because there's always this undercurrent of tension, that's building. There's always this feeling of claustrophobia and tension and dread somewhere in the background of that movie, and it keeps ratcheting up throughout the whole movie. I think this movie felt like it sort of missed that a bit, where the attacks themselves were kind of freaky and nicely done, but um, that tension in between attacks just wasn't there that much. It was interesting because I left the movie and there was someone, she was with her partner, and she was all animated saying, well, they could have done this and they could have done this. And why didn't they do this? And she was right. And I think that's another thing with the movie as well, is that the characters in it, they weren't very proactive in terms of figuring out ways to try and protect themselves or neutralize the threat or try to figure out what's going on. Um, for instance, there's a point in the movie at which they learn that this affliction or whatever Dracula has, um, that sunlight is bad for it. That sun, and it's very dramatic, and they learn that sunlight is very bad for vampires. And at that point, you would expect that they would, well, let's search for this creature during the day. He has to be on board. So let's try and make the ship as bright as possible. We'll try and search through the ship because we know he'd be vulnerable to sunlight. So the daytime is a good time to try and get ahead of this thing and maybe hopefully locate it and try to kill it or something. But they don't do that. It's strange. It's like they kind of skip over the daylight portions and they go into night. And I understand that it's dramatic, obviously, when there's the threat, but it seems like the characters could have been a bit more proactive in trying to figure out ways to protect themselves and defeat this thing. Also, like you'll see here, this is kind of like another. I don't know. I don't think I'm giving anything away. This is a scene where there's a hole in a door, okay, and they're trying to get to something on the other side of the door. And the movie spends 1 to 2 minutes where a villain is created this hole in the door, and the villain is reaching down and trying to undo the latch to get inside. Okay. And we see him, and the movie spends a lot of time trying to open that latch. Okay. So they've set that up. And then when the people show up and they're trying to get in the door, they're just trying to jiggle the handle and trying to open the door, and they're like, open up the door, but they don't try to do the same thing as the villain was doing. This huge hole, they could have reached in and opened the door themselves. It's really, they're just kind of like plot holes like that where characters aren't acting in ways that make sense all the time. So I think for me, that's what kind of diminished the tension a bit and made it harder to buy into the world that these are believable characters that I'm rooting for and can relate to, just because it seemed like some of these things were a bit contrived in order to maximize tension, to make the scary scenes work better, but ironically, they didn't. So I thought, but the thing is this, I will say that the movie had some really freaky imagery. You can see its conception of Dracula right there. Um, it really seemed like this movie took a lot of ideas from Mike Flanagan's Midnight Mass series, because the vampires, I guess you could call them in that series, really almost had the exact same design as Dracula here. And I don't want to give too much away, but it pretty much sticks to this conception of Dracula. This is the look of Dracula throughout the movie, which works from a monster perspective. But I think it's one of those movies that if you're interested in this topic, you should definitely check it out. If you love the idea of a whole movie based on that chapter of Bram Stoker's Dracula, of seeing a new Dracula movie, a new twist to how this story's been told, I think you should check it out because I think there's enough in there that it would be very interesting. I think that it's just another one of these movies for me that it's 2 hours long and you could have cut out 20 to 30 minutes and really made this slick, like made this really like a slick silver bullet of a movie, if you want to say that, because the characters aren't that well-rounded. Maybe just don't spend so much time with the characters in between attacks. Try and keep that tension going. and make it much more of a roller coaster ride. But so that's my own feeling about Last Voyage of the Demeter. Cool concept. If you're interested in this, definitely worth a stream whenever it comes to streaming. 100%. But I thought it was okay. I thought it was okay. It would be, I think if you're a Dracula super fan, go to see it in the theater. You know, and you know who you are if you're a Dracula super fan. If you're a hardcore horror fan, you might want to check it out. But I think for everyone else who's kind of mildly intrigued, you know, unless you really want to support it in theaters, I'd say just check it out when it comes on streaming. Maybe around Halloween. I'm sure it'll be out for Halloween. So those are my thoughts on the Last Voyage of the Demeter. Um, so let's see. Jaws says, I think this movie would be directed by Marcus Nispel in 2000s. Marcus Nispel was a director, made movies for Platinum Dunes. Michael Bay is a company made many horror films and remakes in the 2000s. Did he do the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake? I'm wondering, because I think that was the Michael Bay produced Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'm wondering if Marcus Nispel did that. But yeah, this I will say I think this one, The Last Voyage of the Demeter, really goes for more of a. In some ways, it felt like more of a throwback, like maybe the 2000s, maybe even late 90s feel to it, like just the way it was shot and everything. So yeah, that's actually. Jaws says Dunes, Platinum Dunes is a Michael Bay company. Yes, indeed, Michael Bay has done quite a bit. Jaws says, "Do you prefer this movie or Renfield with Nicolas Cage?" To be honest, I haven't seen that one. That looked really interesting. That looked like a really wild take on Dracula, which I think that was also Universal. So that's two Dracula movies in one summer. But it's almost like they're not focusing on Dracula that much. Like in this one, he's sort of a shadowy monster who's attacking, you know, he's this kind of threat that's off screen most of the time. In the Nicolas Cage movie, it seems like Renfield was the main character and Dracula was kind of on the side. So I'm going to say that we have not had a Dracula movie in a long time, one that is focused right on Count Dracula. And a movie I love, and I don't want to get too into it because I know we can't really talk about movies, but Francis Coppola's movie was really good. Dracula movie. I really enjoyed that. Great adaptation. Flip the script. According to the UK newspaper The Independent, Stephen King has praised this movie. Right. Thank you. Got to have my little save silver rejuvenation there. Yes. Yeah, I saw that as well. And that's great. And I think this is the type of story that Stephen King would love. Like I think it's a fantastic story. I think there's a lot in here that's great. I think maybe it's just for me the characters were a bit thin, and the movie was a little bit long, and there were some kind of plot holes. Some things that could have been tightened up a little bit better, maybe in the script before they shot the movie. But there's a lot of good work in here, and yeah, this would be definitely the type of story that Stephen King would be into. So if you're a Stephen King fan, if that excites you that Stephen King is into this, check it out. I think it's worth checking out. Jaws says this movie is 100% Bram Stoker. Yeah, it's meant to be, you know, lifted directly from those captain's logs, which is interesting because the main character, who is Clemens, who's a doctor, played by Corey Hawkins, he plays a black doctor. He's pretty much the main character of this movie, but at the same time, it's supposed to be based off the captain's logs. So that's another thing too. It's almost like you have these two, you know, whose perspective is the story being told from, and it's really neither of their perspectives. But I think Dr. Clemens is essentially the main character of the movie, and he's good. All the actors, I think, overall are good. They're really good. It's just they're trying trying to do a lot with kind of thinner characters, and it's really the actors I think that bring a lot of the juice to the movie. Marianella says, "Hello, Ken. Hello, everyone. What did you think of Dracula 2000 with Gerard Butler? Have you seen?" I haven't seen that one. I have not seen that one. And I'll be honest. I love the character, but I have not seen all the Dracula movies. I probably got to go back and see uh, all these movies because before this, actually, I was trying to catch up on all these movies, and what was it, a year or two, I saw Monster Squad for the first time. So and I know there are so many other depictions of Dracula, but I need to catch up. I haven't seen that one. Would you recommend that one, Marianella? That's my question. So anyway, guys, so that's kind of my overview of Last Voyage of the Demeter. I hope that that's kind of an interesting uh, review or topic for you. I don't know if that's something you're typically interested in. As far as I know, we've done mainly nostalgia type movies, and we'll be going towards that eventually. But I saw this movie, so I figured I'd talk about it. One thing I did want to let you know is that I will be going to see Blue Beetle tomorrow night. So I will let you know. I will give you my review. This is Jolo Maridueña from Cobra Kai, who plays Miguel on Cobra Kai. This is his starring role as a DC superhero. I will be going to see that movie tomorrow night, and I will let you know what I think. Maybe I'll even do an out of the theater quick review to let you know what I thought of Blue Beetle, coming from someone who really enjoys the Cobra Kai series. So let me know, are any of you planning on going to see Blue Beetle as well? So I am working on, so I mentioned also that on Saturday, we'll be doing an extended review, a two-person extended review with me and Rich Baker of the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. I am also working on a review video of Ghostbusters 2 because and I had to bring out Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. I might fill out the background with some more things here pretty soon. But I feel like that movie needs attention shown on it in terms of a review critique perspective, because I feel like that movie, the critiques of it are, I don't know, maybe a bit too harsh. And just as a preview, even though the first movie is an absolute classic, it's wonderful. It's probably one of the best comedies ever made. The second movie, while not as good as the first one and not a classic, still is good and fun. And so my movie review of Ghostbusters 2 will kind of delve into that and hopefully highlight things that other reviewers have not highlighted of that movie. So yes, so definitely looking forward to that. Robana says, I love that movie as a kid. Yeah, indeed. It really, I think, tied into the animated series in an interesting way. And just as kind of a preview of that video that I'm making, I think there's a lot of humor that adults appreciate in the first movie. There's a lot of social satire, and I think that's why it's so brilliant. Especially as you get older, you can see all of that social satire and understand it all. When you're a kid, you're looking at the ghosts and the proton packs and like all that stuff, but as an adult, you're you're looking at how these people are kind of forming a commentary on society. And I think that's why it's just so funny and brilliant, or one of the reasons. In the second movie, I think there's a lot less of that. So I could see how adults who enjoyed that aspect of the first movie maybe missed a lot of that in the second movie. But if you're not really looking for that aspect of it, I think it's funny and there's a lot of good stuff in that movie. Marianella says, I recommend it, Dracula 2000. I liked it. It's a different version, but not so far away. Unexpected twists. Very cool. Okay. I know that there was another movie called Dracula Untold, and I think Luke Evans was in that one, and I haven't seen that one either. But Universal has basically been trying to start their I think they call it the dark universe. They want to get these movie monsters back up on the screen. And if you're a theme park fan, supposedly in Universal Epic Universe, the theme park in Orlando, they're going to be creating a dark universe or a monster land with all these classic monsters like Dracula and Frankenstein and the Mummy and the Wolfman. I don't know, but all of those classic monsters. And it's really strange to me. If they're trying to launch these movies, and the most spectacular, I guess you could say, business failure was the Tom Cruise Mummy movie. That came out, when was that? Like maybe 6 years ago? Was it 6 years ago? 7 years ago? The Mummy was starring Tom Cruise came out, and no one went to see it, and it didn't get well reviewed. And I don't know. It's just been very puzzling, I think, how they've gone about trying to launch their monster universe, if they're trying to do that. Because with these Dracula movies, it's like they're not really focusing on Dracula. It's like Dracula's there kind of on the edges, but they're not really focusing on Dracula. So I don't know what their thinking is. Like, are they going to do a Dracula movie that really focuses on Dracula? Are they going to do and really the classic story of Dracula? Are they going to focus on Frankenstein? Are they going to are they going to try the Mummy again? I don't know. But we'll see. Those monsters are very beloved, and I think they should work. I think people would want to go see them. They're mainstays of Halloween. I mean, everyone dresses as them. So I think those movies would do well. But Jaws says with little money or low budget, you can make vampire movies or even vampire comedy. Taika Waititi, I think that's how I pronounce it. Sorry if that's wrong. Became famous in recent years for directing a vampire movie. Right. What We Do in the Shadows. Yes. So he directed that movie, and then that series is great, very funny. And I think you're right. You don't have to have a huge budget. And this movie that I saw, The Last Voyage of the Demeter, the budget really wasn't that big. I think it was in the realm of 40 to 50 million dollars, which nowadays for a movie like that is really small. We were talking about other movies like the latest Indiana Jones movie, the Fast X, uh, Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning. Those types of movies are costing $300 million or more. So it's very hard to make back your money when you're spending that much money. And I think you're right. You could do these monster movies and you don't have to have an exorbitant budget. I think you just have to have great storytellers and great filmmakers and cinematographers. And horror is known for that. Great horror directors can really make wonderful movies and wonderful experiences for not that much money. It's all about storytelling and not always about how much money you can throw at it. Marianella says there are several Dracula movies, one where the same actor appears in Buffy the Vampire Slayer playing the same character. Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's I know they keep coming back to Dracula. I don't know why Dracula though. It seems like the movies really never hit. I'm wondering if that's because we haven't had really a full just retelling of the Dracula story since. I could be wrong about the Gerard Butler one, but 1992, Francis Ford Coppola did Bram Stoker's Dracula, and that was an adaptation of the novel. And of course, with Francis, it's very, very artfully done. So no one's decided to try and go back to that again. Jaws, I love Ghostbusters too, but A Baby in Danger is a good idea in the movies. Well, that's a really great question. Is that a criticism? Was it too much a baby in the movie? And that's one thing sometimes in TV shows and movies, when a baby's there, I think this is just me. I think sometimes a baby tends to suck the character's attention, and the baby can look cute, but it's really not giving much back to the other characters. So it's sort of like an energy suck of all the other characters. And so it's tricky, I think, to have a baby in a movie because it can suck a lot of energy and attention that the characters would otherwise be doing, interacting with people, and you could see things go back and forth. I don't know. I think in that one it worked because the baby was the MacGuffin. The baby was the object of Vigo's plan, and so I think it worked. I think it worked. And I don't think the baby was overplayed too much. But I think maybe I don't know. And again, I'll be doing a video on this. My one thing though is that Sigourney Weaver's character Dana was really concentrating on the baby quite a bit throughout that whole movie. Like her energy was devoted to the baby as it should be in that situation. But, sometimes I watch, these Ghostbusters movies and I go, "M- Sigourney Weaver played Ripley in the Alien movies. I mean, she took down in Aliens. I mean, she took down the mother alien. Like she's just badass. And I can only imagine if Dana became a Ghostbuster, had a proton pack. I mean, I think those ghosts would be in trouble, frankly. And I think I would have enjoyed, maybe the times were different, but I think that's a character where she could have legitimately become like a Ghostbuster herself. And that would have been cool to see on screen. And so, yeah, I could see that, like, instead of that, she's really concerned about her baby, which, is legitimate. But maybe you're right. Maybe there's something to that. Um, let's see. Clifford says, "What about Bride of Frankenstein?" Right. Yeah. I mean, there are so many wonderful characters just in that universe, Universal. So that would be great. It would be amazing for them to maybe redo that. I think the last time after the success of Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, there was Kenneth Branagh's Frankenstein, with Robert De Niro playing Frankenstein, and Helena Bonham Carter played the Bride of Frankenstein in that one. And it really, yeah, it hasn't been touched since the 90s. And, that was what, 30 years ago? So you could think, it's probably time for a proper big budget retelling of these monster movies, I would think. Um, hey, how's it going, Patrick? Is that you? Are you edits? Great to see you. Yeah, I love that avatar as well. That's great. Um, so so yeah, this is really interesting. So talking about these movies, I'll be honest with you, this is new territory. I appreciate you watching. Um, we are trying to pivot and shift content to more of critiques of movies and TV shows because that's what we can do right now during the strike, and also other topics that maybe of more independent productions. I've been thinking about. I love the movie The Room. Tommy Wiseau's The Room. It's just an amazing experience. A lot of people call it a horrible movie. James Franco did a movie about the making of The Room called The Disaster Artist. I love I it's just one of my favorite movie experiences. It's so hilarious. I know unintentionally so, but such a hilarious movie. So I was thinking of actually doing something with that, and then also some Tornado Chasers content. I think that would be um, a lot of people. Some people I think would be very interested in that, and we'll see if we can get maybe a group of the people who made Tornado Chasers together and kind of talk about the production. It was definitely a huge moment in my life. So I love that. I'm very proud of what we did with that series. So yeah, Jay Wiggin, it's great to see you, Jay. I love the Universal Wolfman remake. So so that's the thing. Like, it's interesting. I'd love to see Universal get some momentum going. I'd love to see them get some momentum going. Unless, and I'll just throw this out here, are all these shared universe things getting passe? Are they becoming too cumbersome? If we look at Marvel and we look at DC, they have this they both have their cinematic universes, but are they becoming too cumbersome? Is it too much to try and keep up with? Are people checked out of Marvel now? Are they not watching Marvel as much because they feel like they have to watch everything to keep up? They don't really like everything, or they're fatigued or too saturated. I know that's the other thing with DC. It's like some of these later movies like Shazam and The Flash and Black Adam, it's, were they hurt by the idea that, well, they're going to reboot the cinematic universe anyway? And so people didn't feel like they had to go watch them because they weren't going to count going forward. Um, So is that idea passe? Are we going to be going more towards standalone franchises or standalone movies and not these huge shared universes? Because um, while it can be great if they're all wonderful and people go to see them all, they can be maybe a drag, like with the DC universe, like the Flash. Did the fact that the DC universe was being rebooted and kind of going down and didn't have as much of a great reputation lately, did that drag down a movie like the Flash, where if it wasn't connected to that, would it have done better? I don't know. Be interested to hear your thoughts on all of that. Yes, Marianella, behind the scenes on Cobra Cole, we are working on that. Absolutely. I think I am going to be talking with Dave Schrock, and we have actually there are a lot of pictures and videos from the making of that we haven't even shared yet. So this would probably be a good time to go into that with Cobra Cole. Good evening, Tig Terry Silver Rocks. Wonderful to see you, and I want to thank you for being executive producer of this KenCast and all the KenCasts. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're feeling better. You are a true hero, Tig Terry Silver Rocks. So thank you for watching. It's wonderful to see you. You are a true champion. You are a true champion. Jay Wiggin says, I fell victim to myself trying to keep up with all the Marvel movies. I fell off the train and got run over by it. Okay, Jay, so that's a really interesting point. I fell off the train and got run over by it. Okay, so I think what you said, so many other people feel right now. And is it the fact that it's too much? Is it too much to watch? Is it almost an obligation now to have to watch everything? For instance, there's a series called Secret Invasion that I did not watch. It's like I didn't want to watch it because it just, I don't know. I just felt like it didn't seem very interesting to me, but it's almost like a chore. It's an obligation. It's like, well, I guess I could watch it because then I could know what's going on in the future in other series that reference this. And it just feels like an obligation sometimes to watch all this stuff. I don't know if that's what you mean by got run over it, but I think that's a wonderful, wonderful point. I do wonder if there's just too much oversaturation of these franchises. If they really need to take time and put in breaks between these movies. You think back to, when I was growing up, the Christopher Reeve Superman movies had already come out, and there were only 4 of those over, 9 years. There were only 4 of them. And then the original, I guess you could say, Batman movies, there were 4 of those, and that was 89 through 1997. So over 8 years, there were 4 Batman movies. And that's it. And they were big events. And, there weren't all these other, like you didn't have like DC didn't have all these other movies coming out where you had sometimes 2, 3, or 4 DC or Marvel movies coming out in the same year. It's a lot to keep up with. And my question to you guys is it too repetitious? Are superhero movies, no matter how good the stories are they all inherently repetitious in terms of the types of stories that are told, the types of character progression that happen? I know the comics can go in all different kinds of directions. You can have all different kinds of superhero movies, but it seems like these superhero movies adhere to a specific formula that seems to have worked, and they just keep on repeating that. And so I'll give you an example. I'm big into physical media, and I bought the Blu-ray to the first Iron Man movie because I loved that movie and I thought it was great. And I might have bought the Blu-ray to the first Avengers movie, but after that, I haven't bought any other Marvel movie because I feel like if I go to see a Marvel movie, it's kind of the same movie all over again anyway. So I'm like, I'm just going to go see the next one, and that, I don't need to see the last one again. I'll just see the next one. I don't know if I'm unique in that, but yeah, just something too formulaic. And Jay clarifies, yes, too many hours, right? It's too much of a time commitment. And then Jay says these executives see on paper that certain movies are a formula for success. When things start to change, it takes a while for them to adjust. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like, superhero fatigue is real, and it's like this massive cruise ship, this massive ship that they're trying to turn. I think you're right. It's like it just takes a long time to turn this ship. So Jaws says, take Terry Silver rocks. Yes, she does. She absolutely does. Thank you, Jaws. Thank you, Tig Terry Silver rocks. So yeah, if you're interested in talking about superhero movies, we can as well. But it's crazy to me because if I were like a kid growing up right now, I think I'd be in heaven. Just all of these superhero movies. Nothing like this happened when I was growing up. Like as I mentioned, we had the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, and then we were getting into the Batman movies, like with Michael Keaton. That was it. And you know, Spider-Man, there was the old 70s TV series. They only made a few episodes, I think, of that, but they aired those occasionally. And I remember looking through the TV guide, and this is how old I am, right? Where I couldn't just look up content on YouTube or order DVDs. I mean, I had to look up to see when things would be playing, and I'd be hoping that there would be like Spider-Man on TV or something. And there just wasn't that access to superhero content like there is now. So I think I'd be in heaven. But it does seem like it's just so much now. It's so much to keep track of, and too many repeating formulas. I don't know. I do like some of these. And again, I am going to see Blue Beetle tomorrow night. I don't know if any of you are going to see their previews tomorrow night, at least here in LA. I'm going to see Blue Beetle starring Jolo Maridueña from Cobra Kai. I think he's going to do a fantastic job. He's got movie star written all over him. And so I will do a review and tell you what I think of that. But we'll see. Is it going to be the same thing again? Maybe. I don't know. Johnny Utah says they need to do something different, like The Boys, where superheroes are jerks. Yeah, kind of like deconstructions. Or one of my favorite, things. One of my favorite shows growing up when I was a kid was Greatest American Hero. I love that show. Love it. I still do. Someday I'll do a video on it. If you haven't seen it or haven't heard of it, it was absolutely amazing. And I think I'm surprised that really hasn't been brought back, because that would have been a lot of fun. I think modern audiences would really dig it. I think it would be very funny. And yeah, I'm not sure why I read that there was a pilot done where they kind of changed up the formula a bit, but it wasn't greenlit. But gosh, that would be something that, if I had the chance to make Greatest American Hero again, I would relish that, because I love that show. Love it. Jay Wiggins says Spider-Man's webs look like rope in that 70s one. Yeah, the Hulk. That's right. The Hulk was awesome, but you could tell rocks were styrofoam, right? But that's the amazing thing. Like when you're a kid and when you're young, you can just look through that. Maybe it's harder for audiences now to look through stuff like that, but back then it's all about that suspension of disbelief, and yeah, it didn't look that great. There was that cool move in the Spider-Man show, like, they'd always have him like, scaling up a skyscraper or something like that. And, you could kind of tell it was a guy on a wire that was just kind of like crawling up the side of the building. But still, it was cool. It was cool. Clifford says, I was a little disappointed in She-Hulk. Yeah, that's another one I haven't seen. Tatiana Maslany, I think that's how you pronounce her name. She's really talented. I love her as an actress. She was great on Orphan Black. She probably played like 6 different characters on that show. She's really talented. But yeah, from what I've heard, She-Hulk, people didn't like it that much. I haven't come across anyone in real life that has seen it and liked it yet. I'm sure they're out there. If you like She-Hulk, let me know. But this is another problem I think that's true with a lot of the Disney stuff right now. Like, for instance, the Star Wars movies. It seems like there are a lot of quality control issues. I am finally getting through Andor, which I think is miles better than a lot of other, like, that is a gem, I think, Andor is. But yeah, I think a lot of the Marvel content and a lot of the Star Wars content, it's not as good as it could be, and I don't know why the quality is an issue, because starting out in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, really, you could count on all of those movies, all of those projects to be of very high quality. And I don't know if it's just resources are limited or they're trying to do too much too quickly. Maybe developing these series is kind of a new area, and Kevin Feige and maybe his team had really, they haven't refined on how to do these Marvel TV series. But it's really, yeah, it's too bad, because these things, I think, all of these series hopefully should appeal to most of the audience, most of the fan base, and it seems like they're not, or they're divisive, and I don't know why they're divisive. They all seem to be a little bit divisive. And the other thing too is, look, I get it. Like, if I were, say, a content creator who was interested in ginning up controversy, I could just like start raging on all this stuff. And I think people enjoy like all those rage videos. And some of them are well thought out, but some of them are just to get clicks. And it's like taking these sort of like raging positions against companies or properties. And, that's not me. And I don't think, yeah, unless I'm really upset by like one particular thing, I don't want to have like this default of like raging on things that because regardless of whether you liked it or not, so many talented people worked on that. Even on shows or movies that you didn't like, I guarantee you, so many people put their entire life's energy into making that. And you can see the talent. It's there. It just maybe didn't come together quite in the right way. So I don't know. We'll be getting into that, I guess, because I'll be doing reviews as far as like modern content, as long as the strike's going on. So maybe we'll figure out how to talk about these things. Johnny Utah says, "Why hasn't Gambit from X-Men appeared in any movies? He's super popular." Yeah, he is popular, and I don't know if there's. Well, wasn't he in X-Men Origins Wolverine? Wasn't he in that one? I think he was. Um, do you remember that one with Liev Schreiber played? Oh gosh, I'm having trouble remember. But you remember, it kind of like traced Wolverine's like history, through I think the Civil War, through time. I only saw it once. It's probably my least favorite X-Men movie, but I think Gambit was in that one. You correct me if I'm wrong. I think he was. Marianella says the CGI in She-Hulk is disappointing. Right. Okay. So, um, that's another thing is, in fact, I should have, do I have this? Let me see. I don't, I didn't bring up this news article, but I saw that Marvel visual effects artists are going to start to unionize, or they're going to have a vote to unionize. So there isn't a union right now for visual effects artists. And supposedly, word on the street is that that's one of the big problems with these superhero movies, is that they really put a lot of strain on these visual effects artists to do a whole lot of work for not a whole lot of money and not a whole lot of time. So I think what we're seeing in a lot of these shows is they're trying to squeeze as much juice as they can out of these visual effects companies. But it reminds me of what I hear from huge, high-profile video game developers, where you know people are sleeping at the office and they're being forced to like work extra long hours to get these projects delivered. And I'm thinking that's what's going on right now in the visual effects community. And they're going to try to unionize, I think, so that there can be standards on work and they can't be taken advantage of. So I think that if we could get, I don't know, some perspective from the studios and the people making these things on just the effort and time it takes to do good CGI, maybe we could fix this issue of the CGI being disappointing. Because I guarantee in this situation, if you see CGI being disappointing, it's because they're asking the visual effects crew to do too much work for too little money or time. I that's I think what is going on. Johnny Utah says Gambit was in one scene, I believe, right. So, and I think he was played by, oh, what's his name, who played John Carter, the movie John Carter. Yeah, but I think you're right. He's a super popular character, and maybe it's just his power is people think it's be kind of silly in real life. I don't know. But I think if they're going to be doing X-Men going forward, they should figure out a way to bring Gambit into it because yeah, I think he's a cool guy. Hello, Johnny. Jay Wiggins says Liev was Sabretooth. That's right, he was Sabretooth. Man, it's been so long. Jaws says, do you imagine in Thomas Ian Griffith in 1989 if he was Batman in the Tim Burton movie against Jack Nicholson's Joker? This Batman with martial arts and vengeance like Terry Silver. You know, it's really fascinating because I think Thomas Ian Griffith, I think, could play Bruce Wayne in a second. And I know that, and Batman. I think Hayden I'm sorry, Hayden Schlossberg. I was thinking Star Wars. Sorry, Hayden Schlossberg and John Hurwitz had mentioned when I was talking to them about how he was like Terry Silver almost was sort of like a dark Bruce Wayne, and I think that's a really cool perspective on the character. On the other hand, I could see Thomas Ian Griffith playing the Joker as well. I think he could play both of those. And so basically, I think that the world has been robbed by not having Thomas Ian Griffith as a high profile comic book character in movies. Hopefully that can still happen. I think he's just super talented, and especially in these action movies that include fighting. Obviously, he has the physical prowess to do that as well. Don says, hello, Ken. Hi. Hope everyone's well this afternoon. Thank you for jumping in. We're just having kind of a laid back discussion here about the industry. Nothing really too much in particular. So guys, I will, okay, so I want to throw this up. We're going to be doing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, a detailed review, the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie review. We're going to be doing this Saturday at 3:30 Pacific with Rich Baker. It's going to be awesome. He's like an expert on this movie. If you're a fan of this movie, definitely I'm going to create that today. So subscribe to this channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss it. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we will be comments. So we definitely want to do that. And then this was the result. Hopefully you got a chance to vote in this. You still can. This was a snapshot from a few days ago. This is what everyone voted for content on this channel. So it looks like people are interested in the 80s, 90s movie reviews. So we're going to be doing that, and then maybe a few other of these topics as well. So just to let you know, and we will wrap up with a few more comments. Marianella says, I only liked Michael Keaton's Batman. Also, another reason why I liked that movie is that it has the same dubbing actor as Terry Silver in Karate Kid 3. Oh, okay. Interesting. That is absolutely fascinating. I know, because that's like a whole other thing that can connect these different characters is how you cast the voice, the dubbing voice, and those voices can become well-known actors as well. So that's really cool. And Marianella, I hope you had a chance to check out The Flash. You might get a kick out of it because Michael Keaton, it's Batman, has a pretty decently sized role in that. So The Flash, I will say, I thought was fun. I actually thought it was better than a lot of people gave it credit for. I didn't think it was like the best superhero movie of all time, but I thought it was entertaining. I had fun. So I would say if you're a fan of Michael Keaton's Batman, check it out. I think you'd like it. And Don says Cowpunka. Yes, indeed. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. Members, be sure to stick around. Coming up at 2 p.m. Pacific time in the United States, there will be a members-only stream for finalists level and above, and we will go into more detail on other news stories. We can basically talk about whatever you'd like. It's definitely more of a closed setting, so we can talk about maybe have a little more freedom to talk about certain topics. But it's wonderful to see you all, and thank you for your patience. We had to postpone last weekend's live stream to today, but we will be back on Saturday with more live streaming action with Rich Baker talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1990. That will be a ton of fun. Wonderful to see you. Don, thank you so much. Flip the script, great show. Looking forward to the review. Yeah, that'll be a fun one. Lisa, great to see you again. And Jaws, yes, Michael Keaton, amazing Batman. Well, guys, thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you all next time. Have a great rest of the week. Don't work too hard. Have fun. And we look forward to seeing you this weekend. I'll also be seeing Blue Beetle tomorrow night. So I'll let you guys know what I think. Have a good day. We'll see you next time on KenCast.
Want to be part of the live KenCast show? Subscribe to the Ken Cole YouTube channel and hit the notification bell to get alerts about every new show. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time on KenCast.